Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm revealing 5 ways to be supportive in a relationship. My guest Liz was sure she was doing things properly and correctly in her marriage, but she and her husband were separated for 5 years. It was painful and lonely, and she didn't know what to do about it. But then something happened that changed everything. And she now says that her marriage is wonderful. She couldn't be happier. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. And the worst relationship advice of the week award goes to an article in a well-known publication that gets nominated for this award more than Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks put together get nominated for Academy Awards. If you're wondering how to interpret your spouse's withdrawing, this advice is sure to make the problem much, much worse. All of that's coming up, but first, I'm going to reveal 5 ways to be supportive in a relationship. When your husband is going through a tough time, it's pretty hard to just stand by and watch without wanting to help him or fix things somehow. It's agonizing to see him suffering and struggling, and why should he when you're right there ready to support him? Especially if you have solutions for him that, if he would only try them, you're pretty sure would help him feel better and thus help you feel better too. But what if he's pushing you away? Or what if he just seems distant and isn't letting you contribute the way you'd like to? If you've already done all you can to be a good wife, only to feel more disconnected, then you know how frustrating that is. So how are you supposed to be supportive when your partner is stressed or depressed? Well, here are 5 ways that you can do that with your man and create more connection while you're at it. Number 1, see if you're being too helpful. There was no more shocking moment in my entire life than the day I realized that the idea that my husband needs my help is a big intimacy killer. I mean, everybody knows that when you're married, you're supposed to help him, right? That's what I thought too. No one had taught me that taking on responsibility for my husband meant that I was not expecting the best outcome. If I know that you're capable and competent, I don't feel the need to help you. In my experience, there's nothing sexier to a man, not even a Victoria's Secret ad, than knowing that his wife believes he's capable and smart. A big tenet on our campus is that you are the expert on your own life. So only you know what's best for you, which is why our coaches don't give advice. They share their experience and they ask powerful questions to guide you to your own answers. And students report that this dynamic alone feels empowering. So what if you treated your husband as the expert on his life, someone who doesn't need rescuing, fixing, improving, correcting, or teaching, someone who will find the best solutions? I hear from my students again and again how her husband rose to the occasion when he felt trusted and respected. Number 2, receive, receive, receive. You might be asking, but what about the golden rule? I know that I want help. Isn't it only fair to give him what I would want myself? Well, this assumes that men and women are the same, which I was convinced of in the bad old days. Come to find out, women are built to receive in every way. Physically, of course, receiving brings us pleasure. It's your birthright as a woman to receive gifts, help, compliments, and special treatment too. The men, on the other hand, they are wired with a hero gene. Making a woman happy brings him pleasure. So imagine how far it would go with improving his outlook on life if your husband felt like he succeeded in being your hero. Number 3, become a great conversationalist. Treating your man with respect makes him want to be around you more and talk to you more often and share more deeply and make love to you more passionately. And one of the most respectful things you can do is just listen without trying to fix, without trying to solve, without trying to get the laundry started. Just bearing witness to his thoughts, to his life, to what he's saying. That's a powerful way to support him. It's a way of showing that he's important. Number 4, use the magic word. If you get out of the business of helping your husband and become a safe listening space for him, does that mean you're supposed to become a mute? Of course not. He didn't marry you to have a Stepford wife. I bet he was drawn to a woman who had things to say. If that doesn't feel like the case anymore, maybe the most powerful way to use your voice is to express gratitude, to say thank you, letting him know how much you appreciate him being a great provider or how taken care of you feel because he always takes out the trash. That can go a long way towards making him feel successful as a man. Not to mention that seeing you pleasable makes him want to do even more to please you. Number 5, let him support you. Just as you want to be supportive to your husband, don't forget to give him the opportunity to save the day for you. Do you need something picked up across town at rush hour? Are you nervous about the presentation you're doing at work? Or maybe you just want to take a bath without being interrupted by the kids. Letting your husband be your hero can go a long way towards showing that you rely on him too, and that he serves a vital purpose in your life, which can be the best support of all. Turning towards each other strengthens connection and lowers stress hormones. And while it's counterintuitive, that includes you being the one who needs support sometimes too. You may feel that he's already too burdened and that needing anything is only going to make matters worse. But you might be surprised how much confidence he feels when he's able to solve one of your challenges. And showing your vulnerability is a great way to show that you see how strong he is. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest, Liz, was sure she was doing things properly and correctly. She and her husband were separated for 5 years. It was both painful and lonely, and she didn't know what to do about it. But then something happened that changed everything, and she now says that her marriage is wonderful. She couldn't be happier. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. Liz, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you, Laura. I'm so happy to be here.
Great. Well, let's start with the bad old days. What was your marriage like?
In the bad old days, I thought my marriage was perfect, actually. I had no idea there was even a problem. I was very helpful. I was very controlling. I did everything. I did all the cleaning, the shopping. I even dressed my husband before he went to work every day. I thought everything was perfect. I was a horrible receiver. He would buy me things I didn't like. I would just be so disrespectful. I did not understand how much that hurt him when I said horrible things like, why would I want that? I don't even wear makeup. And it was really mean. And that I had no idea. And then all of a sudden, one day, he just wanted to leave. And that, needless to say, put me in a really dark place. I was devastated. I had no idea there was anything wrong with our relationship. We actually went to counseling a couple of times. He refused to go. He said he was perfect and he didn't need to change. And I, of course, tried to control the whole thing, which was very disrespectful, and it didn't work. And State of the Union was my number one tool, which obviously pushed him right out the door because the last State of the Union that we had, I forced him to say that he would rather be alone than be in the relationship with me. And I just didn't get it. I didn't understand. I'm like, everything's going so well. What is wrong with you? And I thought it was all him. And when we did have those State of the Union talks, he would be physically inverted. We're different cultures, so his culture doesn't talk much. So we would sit down to talk, and he would put his hand in his head and slouch way over, and you could just see him caving in. It was actually horrible to watch, and he hated it. He later told me those moments of State of the Union were absolute torture sessions for him, and he couldn't open up. He couldn't talk. Nothing ever came of those sessions except my talking and telling him what to do and trying to control the whole thing. And the whole thing just always went belly up. And the very last one that we had forced him to say he would rather live alone.
Oof. So when you say forced him, if they were anything like my State of the Union talks that we had on our couch, it was you saying, well, are you trying to say this? Do you mean this? Or asking questions like, well, are you saying you'd rather be alone? Is that how
Yes.
you forced
Yes.
him to?
Yes. I just, well, what's wrong? What are you talking about? I don't understand. I think everything's fine. Why? What do you mean you want to leave? And the words were kind of just trickling out. I could barely hear them. I'm like, what are you saying? What are you talking about? And you would just say, he would just rather be by himself. And he just wanted to exercise all the time. And he doesn't care what he eats or what he wears or if it's not good for him, or he just wants to be alone. And I went to a very dark place after that. It was really, really difficult. I couldn't accept it. I was everything that you talk about in your sessions and your book, Laura. I came across your website. Actually, that's how I found you, and I eventually got the book. And I just couldn't believe all the things in your book that I was doing. I was calling him every day, wanting to know what is he doing. I was trying to stalk. I don't know, really stalk, not stalking, but investigating what he was up to. Why wasn't he coming home? And what was he doing? I just could not get over it. And that dark place kind of just spiraled until after I read the book. And I already do self-care, but after I learned about how valuable self-care is, I dove right into that. And the gym, there was no COVID then. And so I went to the gym on a regular basis. I exercised. I wrote in my journal. I did yoga. I had circles with girlfriends, not Laura Doyle circles, but just women's circles that were kind of purging. Actually, it was male bashing, which really wasn't very effective. But at the time, it was really fun, and that brought me around to using the skills and the value of the intimacy skills and your program, which probably saved my life and my marriage.
Really? Okay. I want to hear all about that. So first of all, I just want to say on the man bashing, I get it. I did used to do a lot of man bashing with my girlfriends too. And it kind of was fun. Like there was something satisfying about it.
Yeah.
And I would feel connected to my girlfriends, I think, because we could all just laugh about how lame men were. So I get that. And it's not worth it to me now. And I imagine it's probably not worth it to you now either. Am I right about that? Or
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't feel as fun as it used to. But I could just
No, I don't do it anymore.
yeah, but I can appreciate though that it did feel fun
Yeah.
because we had it in common. So you started all this self-care stuff. So he moved out, right? Is what it was
Yeah.
happening, and that's when and I love that you called it stalking actually because I like to joke stalking is love, right? But it kind of it's really fear. It's really like what are you
Yeah.
doing? Who are you with? Were you afraid that there was somebody else?
Yes. I actually was almost positive that there was another woman.
And did you ever find any evidence of that?
That's a part of the story that gets a little convoluted and twisted because he actually is in a profession where he talks to a lot of people, both sexes, and there's this one person that I was certain was another woman, and I just kept insisting that it was true, and he finally just said, "Yeah, you know what? It's true. I have a girlfriend." Because I just wouldn't shut up about the girlfriend. So to get away from me, he finally just said, "Yeah, that's right. You want to call her my girlfriend? She's my girlfriend." But the truth about that is a lot different. What I thought was a girlfriend was actually something completely different, and I didn't find out about that until I went through the skills and I learned how to behave more respectfully. And I got some emotional safety in our relationship, and I became more vulnerable. And I used the skills, phrases that you suggest. I hear you, whatever you think. And of course, I think woman on the planet has to use the duct tape because women just talk too much. And that's what got me into trouble. What's wrong with you? And so I had lots of duct tape that I used. And so when we got back together, I finally was introduced to what I believe was probably the other woman. He took me where he's living, and I found out he was a hoarder.
Mm.
And it's so overwhelming. And I know that a lot of people live that way, but if you're not in that sort of a lifestyle, it's very difficult to understand why people do that.
Mm.
And I can't describe how, when I walked through the door, how I felt.
Mm.
But I immediately just felt really bad how wrong I was. Because people who hoard, usually there's something else going on. And I'm not talking about just stuff, but a great big house filled with stuff this high, just stuff everywhere. No organization. And the description of hoarding, I guess, is all over the place. Some people have it way to the ceiling.
Yeah.
But if you're not expecting that and you don't live that way, and you come into a situation like that, it's very overwhelming. And I don't know why I never visited him over 5 years. He always came here to my home when we visited our home. So it was an accumulation of 5 years of whatever. I can't even describe it. And so that was pretty huge admission for him to feel safe enough with me to allow to share that with me. And we're currently working on conquering that situation.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot to this story. What an amazing story. So I think you had been separated for how long were you separated before you started using skills, intimacy skills?
Um, Probably at least 3, maybe 4.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then you started using the skills and you knew something was up, but it sounds like you didn't really know what was up. And you thought there's this other woman. And then you got the shock of your life. It wasn't another woman really that was standing between you and reconciling. It sounds like it was his stuff.
Yeah. The stuff.
And he didn't feel safe letting you know about all this stuff because of the control that had gone on before. It took a while to reestablish that emotional safety.
Yes. And I didn't realize he was a hoarder in the beginning because I did everything.
That's
I
right.
did all the cleaning. I did all the shopping. I dressed him. I bought his clothes. I cooked the meals. I made the decisions about vacations, where we're going to go, what we're going to do. So I had no idea. So he was left to his own devices, and that's what happened. I'm not saying that he didn't have friends of the opposite sex that he spoke with or got close to,
Sure.
but I don't think there was a full-on other woman relationship like he pretended.
Yes, yes. I get it. And that was like a cover
Yeah,
uh to throw you off the trail of what was really going on. And a- and so but in a way he felt free to hoard, I guess I'll say. Is that right? Because he was on
yeah,
his own. So finally he was like, "Whew, I can keep all this stuff and Liz won't throw it away now." Is that
yeah.
okay?
Well, it's complicated about why people do that, and we're in the middle of exploring that with other professionals, and that's the only way you can really do it. But usually, there's a reason why that's going on because most of us don't live like that.
Right. That's right. No, it totally makes sense. So, so you got the shock of your life. You go to his home, and this is as you've improved your self care and you've started being vulnerable. You're doing all these intimacy skills, and now and the emotional safety came back. Can you tell us a little more about those details? Like, what did you first start by doing? I really heard the self care big time. That was happening.
Yes.
And what other intimacy skills did you start to use? And duct tape you mentioned a lot of them already, but I guess I want to hear how he responded to some of these changes you were making.
Well, actually, it was almost like he was reading my notes or something, or helping me with my program because I would begin listening instead of talking. I would begin listening, and I would say things like, "I hear you," and then the next day he would throw that back at me. "I hear you," and I would think, "Wow, this is weird." And then he would ask me some questions about, what to do with stuff. And I would say, "Oh, whatever you think." And previously I would instruct him, like, "Well, this is what you need to do." And uh, he would follow my instructions. But now I was saying, "Whatever you think," and just leave it at that with the duct tape.
Wow.
And I was growing my own vulnerability with telling him how much I missed him. That would be a text message. I would say, "I miss you." And this was, like in the beginning, my behavior was horrible. I mean, the conversations would be like an hour long on the telephone, and it was just awful. Nothing ever became of those conversations. But after I got the skills and I became more vulnerable, I would just say things like one sentence, "I miss you," in my text message. And I would just wait and see what happened. And he would send me back a message, "I miss you and I love you."
Ugh. Did you just melt?
Yes, it was, I was pretty shocked when he said, "I miss you too," because I had no idea. And of
Ugh.
course, that was where the emotional safety started opening up a little bit. And because it gave me hope.
Yes.
And I could stop talking so much and do more listening. And
Was that pretty hard to do at first?
yeah, because I couldn't stop talking. I couldn't stop telling him what to do.
so, so how did you stop? How'd you stop talking and having those hour-long conversations, State of the Unions?
I think it was the intimacy skills, even though I struggled with performing them perfectly, they did come to me, and I just repeated what I had done before, listening, being more respectful, apologizing for being disrespectful. And we walk, hike a lot because I think it's for men in general, but for my husband especially, that's the only way he will have a conversation with me. He has to keep he has to keep moving. So our conversations occur while we're hiking. And one day I said, I really apologize for being so disrespectful in our relationship and all the things that I did. And then I stopped talking. And he turned around and looked at me and he said, "You just didn't know any better. It's okay." And I have no idea where that came from.
Such a tender response. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I was pretty shocked at that response. And I'm like, gosh, is he listening to my conversations, or how does he just pick up on it?
Yeah, it is kind of eerie in a way, huh? Like,
Yeah, it really was.
Twilight Zone music in the background.
Yes. And one of the things that in your beautiful program that I really, really had no idea, and it was a big aha moment for me, was the mirror, the wife's mirror. And I didn't want to be a wife's mirror. I wanted two different people to enhance each other.
Yeah.
I didn't want that responsibility. So that was really hard for me to understand that women set the tone, and men, respond to our smile and how happy we are. And then, today he wants nothing more than to please me every day.
Really? So, what did you do with that information? Once I get that it was hard to hear, it was hard for me too. I didn't really care to be totally responsible for the culture in my marriage either. Didn't like that too much. What did you do once you had that insight? What did you do differently?
That insight. I'm not really sure. I probably fought it a little bit. I didn't want it, but eventually it sunk in, and I understood that I had to make myself happy before I could face him on a daily basis. Because I always thought everything was the opposite, because I didn't want to be his mother. So I didn't want him to be looking at me all the time to cue off how I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually the opposite. To not be his mother, I have to act more like I want him to see me, or how I want the day to go. A smile, a happiness, a fun day, hugging and being together is way more fun than doing the laundry, the shopping, cooking, or any of that stuff. And I don't even care about that stuff anymore. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have a housekeeper coming on the 21st, and I haven't done anything for so long. It makes me happy.
It makes you happy, so you can smile and have a fun day with your husband now.
Yeah.
So Liz, how did you, so you were separated a long time. How did it, tell us a little bit about how you got to where he was moving back in. He's back in under the same roof now? Okay.
Yes, he's back there.
How did that happen?
Well, I didn't know how things were with him completely at that time, but I just knew that I wanted him to come back, because my desire was, he's going to we're going to have a second marriage. We're going to, go on a honeymoon. We're going to have this big reunion coming together. Well, so up until, I saw the house, that was how I felt. And that didn't happen, obviously. Maybe in the future it will happen. But I just, whenever he asked me to do something, let's go on a hike, I dropped everything I was doing. I said, okay. And we went. Whenever he wanted to watch a movie or have something to eat together, I just said, okay. I mean, like, I put all of his needs, his wants, and desires first and tried to express how happy I was and how much we should be together and what a great thing this is. And eventually I said another, I miss you. And, he ended up moving some of his things back in, and he just said something real glib like, well, maybe I should start sleeping here a couple of nights a week. And he would put 2 shirts in the closet downstairs. And of course, that would frustrate me because that's not who I am, right? I'm like, bring all your stuff, come back immediately. But he would just stick one toe in, and then eventually a few more shirts would appear, maybe a pair of pants in the closet. And that's how it started.
So you became pleasable, it sounds like. You say, I would drop everything to go on a hike with him and say, this is wonderful. I'm enjoying myself. It's nice to see you. And you would smile, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he felt very successful at making his wife happy again.
Mm-hmm.
So he started putting his toe in, and then his foot was in, and now his whole self is in.
He's in, yeah.
And what's your marriage like now?
Now it's not perfect. I'm still working on a lot of things, and myself, especially. I'm very kind of disappointed that COVID is not taken an exit like I wished it would have by this time. A couple of years of isolation, I think, has been difficult for everyone, but we're doing the best we can. We remodeled the kitchen, and I'm hoping to be able to expand some ideas of fun stuff to do with that. Maybe we can even do it together. And I guess it'll have to be by internet. And he's working, and he can't sit still. So he's working quite a bit. And but that frees me up with time to take care of myself, which I really kind of like that. And he's often waiting for me when I'm studying or doing my work. He's often waiting in the driveway for me. And so it's a lot of fun. And he respects the things that I want to do. If I want to hang with my girlfriends or do the things, exercise that I need to do for myself, he's okay with that. And my journaling, and he does a lot of exercise of his own with his guy friends. So we're merging together, and I think it's pretty successful at the moment, and I'm really hoping that it continues that way. Like every marriage, I suppose, we're working on the bigger issues a little at a time.
Yeah, of course. So what are your visions for your marriage going forward? Because it sounds like you're on a journey and you're in the middle, and it's a nice spot that you're in. And there's still more that you would like to see happen. So tell me about that. What's your magic wand?
My magic wand is I would love to have a ceremony to reunite us officially. I would love to reset my diamond. I would love to have a honeymoon in an exotic place. I think we've done a lot of traveling together, and exotic for us would not be in the sun.
Because you live in the
we
sun. Yeah.
yes, we would go someplace, where there's probably, I don't know, snow or something adventureful. That would be what my desire would be.
And so are you hopefully optimistic that those things are in the works
Oh
or it
yeah, I
just kind
do.
of, oh, okay. Okay. So all that's
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, that's coming. Like I said, COVID. We're
Yeah.
both in a profession that are kind of immersed in facing that on a daily basis. So
Mm.
I think I don't know, but that's a really question. I is for the future, but that holds a strong problem, I think, for a lot of people on the planet right now.
Hmm. But what I hear you saying is you want these are the trappings of and like a new marriage in a way, right? Like this is
Yes,
the same man, it's the same husband, but you're from the ashes of the phoenix, a new marriage has arisen, really. And you want to celebrate that and also be recognized for that is kind of what I hear, right? I know when I had my wedding, I wanted everybody, God and everybody to witness and celebrate with me. And I think that's part of what I hear you saying too is
yes,
that you're excited to be renewing your vows and sharing your life with this man that you chose so many years ago, probably. How long have you been married?
um, it's 28 years.
28 years. Okay, yeah.
Well, I guess marriage is about 25 years, but we've known each other.
For 28.
Yeah,
Sure.
28
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's exciting. I think that I love that you would get some formal recognition for this journey that you've been on that feels so private and personal, really. But that the part that you're wanting to share with the world is um, look at the love we've created together. And I think that's what we're
Yeah.
celebrating too.
Yes, it is.
Uh,
And I have a lot of almost the entire thing I can attribute to you, Laura, because without your program, I never would have been successful. And that is really special to me.
well, you have been a very devoted student. So thank you so much. And I have really seen you uh, devote all your energy and make investments in your time, emotion, energy. And you've certainly gotten a lot out of it. And it's just been a joy to watch your journey, Liz. What
Thank
is
you.
your best tip for somebody who's been separated for a lot of years and is maybe feeling kind of hopeless that they're ever going to get back together? And she would like to know from you who've been there, how she should start. What should she do?
Well, I don't think traditional counseling was very effective for me. I did that a few years. Um, and I think getting a Laura Doyle coach and learning how to implement skills that work beyond your wildest dreams and working with that coach to change your life and change your outlook of how you approach your relationship. I spent a solid year every week with a counselor and that nothing. And intermittently, here and there, I tried other things that just didn't work.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought we were going to land on the point. Like sometimes counseling can be helpful, but no. Okay, I
No,
misunderstood. All
no.
right, we'll save that up for that conversation for some other some other interview, I guess. 'Cause that wasn't there. Okay, I get it. And and so implementing the skills really was much more helpful for you. It sounds like that served you better,
Absolutely. That saved my life, actually.
saved your life. I love how you say that. So,
Yeah.
and what do you mean saved your life? Like how so?
Well, when you go down a dark road, it's just really difficult to pull yourself out of that rabbit hole that you fall into. And you just keep journeying to something else that you think is going to work. And that's what happened to me when I found your book. And of course, I wasn't successful right away, but um, I understood the concepts, even though I couldn't implement them correctly, perfectly. I just kept trying. And we're all lovable, and we all want to be loved. And I just couldn't see myself with somebody else. And first, I had to learn to love myself, and that was a big journey in itself, because we have to save who we see in the mirror before we can ask someone to join us.
Wow, beautiful. Very moving. Thank you so much for sharing that inspiring bit of hard-won wisdom with us. What do you think you would say to Liz if you could go back and tell her what you know now?
I would say, love yourself first. Um, do the best you can. Stick with your coach and keep trying, and you'll eventually get it.
But there's hope.
There's hope.
Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, your story is very inspiring. It's not every day that somebody who had been separated for 5 years is in a place of, preparing to have a new ceremony and renew her vows and do a ring and a honeymoon. But you are that woman. You did this. I give you all the credit for fixing your family, for saving your marriage. So congratulations. Well done. Very, very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has been really inspiring and uplifting. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today.
My pleasure.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that has me booing and hissing this week arrived via email from a delightful coach trainee who came across this advice in a publication that I like to call Mythology Passé, because it's full of misleading falsehoods that are seriously out of date. So this sharp coach-to-be has a great eye for relationship advice that has never worked and won't ever work. And I feel so loved that you sent it to me so that I can tear it apart like a dog with a new squeaky stuffed plush toy. So thanks for the love and the contribution to the podcast. That makes me so happy. And the coach trainee wrote, "This article is so full of psychological babble, it's hard to keep up." And she's right. I could barely read the pile of words, which is called When a Partner Withdraws, the 5 most common reasons why a partner withdraws. So the title is from the Department of Redundancy Department. So instead of enduring further brain damage by reading the whole thing, I just closed my eyes and pointed, which is how I landed on this line, which says, quote, "Unpredictable withdrawal is often a sign of infidelity." Bum, bum, bum. So that's how rich in bad relationship advice this article is. It's practically exploding with it. So the message is that when your husband is distant, the first thing you should do is jump to conclusions that he's having an affair and indulge your worst fear and focus on that. Because what you focus on increases. So maybe you could even accuse him of infidelity and demand that he answers you. Because when your marriage is already struggling, jumping off of your own paper onto his And creating a negative spouse fulfilling prophecy will help somehow. Nobody knows how. Unless by help you mean it will make your relationship just go kablooey. Like when you forget to put the lid on the blender, kind of like that. The coach trainee who sent this in wrote, imagine if the ignored partner had the 6 intimacy skills. They could get off of their partner's paper and get some excellent self-care instead. And I completely agree. It's always powerful to get back to the important business of making yourself feel good and happy, no matter how tempting it is to get on someone else's paper. That's like going down a dark alley, in my experience. Unpredictable withdrawal can be a sign that a husband doesn't feel respected or emotionally safe. It could be a sign that he feels more successful at playing video games or at work or fixing his car than he does at making you happy. It could even be a sign that he needs some solitude, just like all humans do from time to time. And for those reasons, the advice that unpredictable withdrawal is often a sign of infidelity is the very, very, very worst relationship advice I've heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share 3 steps to prepare for relationship coaching. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that John asked if the tiny flowers in our bathroom were artificial. I told him I wasn't sure, but I've been watering them just in case.